Welcome back to the Witchy Web We Weave. I'm Alex.
I'm Laura.
And today we're doing another part of our Check Your Pantry video. But this is also something for anybody that likes green witchery and likes growing stuff. This is also a Check Your Garden situation. The next couple videos will be talking about flowers. And they are edible flowers. We will get to non-edible flowers in the future, for sure. But that's going to be a different video. With anything, if you use pesticides or you're buying them somewhere that uses pesticides, they are not for ingestion, they are not for topical use. So we're just going to get the disclaimers out of the way. So it's for anything we talk about, make sure it's for consumption and not for smell or look. Because you can buy potpourris that will smell nice, but you're not meant to eat it.
Yeah, so just huge disclaimer, don't use anything specifically used for smelling or looking good for whatever you're going to be putting in your body. So don't go and buy flowers from like the Walmart floral section and take them home and eat them. Don't buy from
florists in general, honestly, for that purpose.
Yeah, if you're gonna do something like this, either get it from somebody who does it organically, or get it specifically from the culinary section of a grocery store.
So a lot of this, you're either a grocery store, or I do know some metaphysical shops that do sell edible herbs that are edible status, like you can eat them. The only other thing I can think of is some of these might be found in teas. So in that case, they are edible, but they will be mixed with something else. So at that point, do what you do. First on the list is roses, probably one of the most famous of flowers. And she's got a few. Here, we're gonna.
You're closer.
Yeah. So, and these are, I'm assuming, tea grade or edible, or are they topical?
They are actually culinary use. They were found in the culinary section of a grocery store, meant for food and teas.
So again, we already talked about that, but huge distinction versus edible and topical. So, not super huge, I guess, because even if you're putting it on your body, you can technically absorb it. But there are some things that I've seen that you could use topically, like in a bath or something, where you wouldn't necessarily drink your bath water.
Right.
So, it's okay to just kind of soak in. Anywho, so, roses are romantic, mostly in nature. Depending on their color, they can mean different types of romance. So, friendship romance, so friend love, romantic love, family love.
That, and I think that also can go into what you're consuming based on what, as opposed to what you're putting in your spells. I feel like if you're doing different colored roses, that works really well in actual spell work, not as well as just whatever you're doing with your teas. But I agree with you, roses in general are love, but I think roses is also one of the biggest flowers that people have associated different meanings based off color with. Because there are so many different colored roses, and we all have heard of like yellow roses and white roses
and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So roses would be really good if you know how to arrange flowers, and if you have access to them, making bouquets or something would be really good. Bouquet magic would be a really good thing to do with roses specifically. They are very associated with Aphrodite and Eros, who is her son. So, you're getting a little Greek and Roman in there, so you can technically call Eros Cupid. But in most of my research, they do distinguish that most of the times they are talking about Eros. I've rarely seen the word Cupid used.
And not just for, gods and goddesses, but also for the planet Venus. If you need something that's a planetary association for Venus, roses work quite nicely. But, I don't know.
And the day Friday. We're going to do a day of the week video at some point maybe. But English kind of did it weird because the English days of the week are closer to Norse mythology, if I'm not mistaken. But, for instance, in Spanish, it's a lot closer to the Latin, Greek, Roman stuff. So, Friday being viernes in Spanish. Viernes comes from Venus. So, that is literally where we get days of the week. But we're going to talk about that in another video. If anybody works with any other romance deities, it would be a good flower. also.
Unless that particular deity has another flower that they are more closely associated with.
Mm-hmm.
Always, if you know of something that more closely associated with your particular deity, always go
with that.
With the more personalized one rather than a more generic one, unless this is just happens to be what you have on hand. And not just with something like dried roses, rose water
Mm-hmm.
can also be a really good idea for incorporating roses into your magic. I've put it in my tea. I've put it in my bath water.
And you can buy rose water pretty easily.
Yeah, it's in the culinary section. And if it's not in the culinary section, then they put it in the beauty section.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just make your own rose water.
Mm-hmm. But then again, edible roses.
Edible roses.
So, and I did my own thing. Oh, and it is also associated with Taurus.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so some of the flowers I have more associations with others just because in my research it was laid out a lot nicer. Unfortunately, some don't. But Taurus was something that was pretty associated with that, and I was like, I can see that because one of our good friends is a Taurus, and I could see where she's a romance kind of lady.
We know you're watching.
Yeah, you know who you are. But yeah, so it's real good. Roses, and I don't know if it's because they have thorns, because we're going to get into the thorny thing here in a second, but roses themselves are good against the evil eye.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing it has to do with the fact that they have thorns, because other plants with thorns, like blackthorn or something like that, is also really good for protection. But roses...
Oh, hawthorn?
There you go, hawthorn.
Black hawthorn? Or...
Yeah, stuff like that. Thorny things.
Actually, this is something that I just kind of came to my mind, but I already told y'all that my family they're really superstitious, but they don't do well with witchiness or anything like that. But there are so many things that they do for superstitious purposes that just make me raise my eyebrows and like, that's kind of witchy. Like my great-grandmother, she always had roses, like bushes and bushes and bushes of roses circling her house, like along all sides of her house.
Think Sleeping Beauty.
And for her, I think it was not only the fact that she loved roses and she was just naturally had a green thumb, they were her favorite flower, but also good defense. Roses can be very protective.
So, moving into the thorn thing though, because I was like, thorns I feel like have their own thing too, because you can collect thorns and use them separately in magics. Then you can use a whole rose. And some people even recommend when you're using a whole rose to take off the thorns. And some people use the thorns separately in their own other stuff. Thorns are, again, good for protection. They are good for carving, so if you need to carve into a candle or something else soft enough for a thorn to go into, just be careful with your hands, because they can stick you. They are also good for cursing and hexing.
Roses?
Thorns.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so any kind of plant bit that is painful or not great is probably good for hexes and...
This is on a very separate note, because this is not something I would recommend you just go out and eat. But where I grew up in the country, there were thorn nettles, and it was basically it just looked like moss, kind of. It was a very, very low mossy looking. I don't even want to call it a shrub because it's more like grass or a little weed. But whenever you would walk on it barefoot, oh my God, so much pain. But that's also really good for protection and warding and stuff like that. Please don't go out and try and eat it or anything like that. This is just a side tangent.
And then since this is a check your pantry type of thing, so things I've had roses in, tea.
That, and you've had you've gone out and found specific rose
candy.
Rose candy.
I didn't even remember that. In Japan, especially, they really like rose candy. Remember that one time? And she didn't like it.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. I did buy rose water once, and I didn't realize it was concentrated. And I took a swig of just straight rose water.
Concentrate.
Yeah. Oh boy, that was like drinking straight potpourri. And I was like, that was a mistake. I might still have the bottle somewhere because I was so traumatized that I never opened it again. I was like,
you burped roses for a week.
Yeah, I was just like, it was like if you've ever accidentally sprayed perfume and gotten it in your mouth, but you swallowed a bunch of it. Not fun. And then I've also not so much in America, but in Mexico, and I've seen it at gelato places. So if any of y'all have gelato in a mall or something, I have seen rose petal ice cream, which, if made well, is really, really good. I have had rose petal ice cream where it's almost too flowery. Balls. That's okay. Where it's almost too flowery, but then most rose petal ice cream is actually just real sweet and creamy. It's just really good. And I've seen other flowers. I think they have violet ice cream too.
Ooh.
Yeah, or lavender. They have other flowers that
I've seen lavender.
Yeah,
and green tea and things like that.
And in Mexico, one time I did have rose petal pie. Was not the biggest fan. It was kind of like gelatinousy cheesecake, and it tasted like they just threw some potpourri on top of it.
Yeah, it didn't sound like they added much to go with the roses. They just had the roses be the only thing. But
yeah, it was like,
if any of y'all have seen soggy rose petals, that I'm sure that's
it looked beautiful because it was like dry kind of. It looked great. It just tasted like I was eating like just roses. Yeah, and then the only other thing I could think of was to talk about rose colors. We left off with red. Red is typically for romance.
Mm-hmm.
Typically the flower you see couples giving each other, on dates or something. It's like, here, I got you a bouquet, and it's typically red ones. That's something you always see, like red rose petals on the bed or red rose petals in the bathroom.
So not just love, but specifically passion.
Mm-hmm. Passionate romance. Yep.
And I think when you scale it down one notch with pink, that's where you get more of the gentler love, the more when you're doing like self-love, or sometimes whenever you're doing something that involves like a more parental or familial love. I feel like that's a nice color to use for that.
Mm-hmm. The other two that I didn't really associate with pink, but I was reading about that, is gratitude.
I can see that sort of.
In that same vein, appreciation.
For me, just with how my brain works with colors, I see that more with the color yellow. I see a lot of gratitude and appreciation in the color yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how my brain is. But I can understand seeing that for pink.
Mm-hmm. White. Purity, things you would consider to go with white. I've seen a lot of bouquets at weddings be white roses. They are probably the hardest rose to grow color-wise, because I did have, I think they were called sugar moons, and they smelt beautifully, and they were like an heirloom rose, but they brown really quick. So if you're looking for like an aesthetically pleasing rose, white is a hard one to do it with.
Yeah, but white, it can be really good for like ancestor work. It's really good for working with childhood stuff or even trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a really good one for working through some of those things, I feel like. Just along with the other things that white is just normally good for.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, clarifying, purity, just kind of cleansing things.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take this out in a second. It is killing me. Ugh. Next one is yellow, which, when I was reading it, it was about, yellow being good for joy, happiness, and then yellow roses are... I wrote down friendship, but the way they worded it was a lot cuter, honestly. It was like everlasting friendship or something. It was a little more... Cute. There was more fluff to it. I don't know why I didn't write down the whole thing to it, but yeah, it was literally just like a deep, long-lasting friendship, and I was like, oh.
Which, I think that's really adorable, but I also love the fact that with specifically flowers, not just roses, but there's not only the association with different colors and things like that, but also there's an entirely different way of looking at it, or language, when you look at the older habit of using flowers as its own language, by giving certain bouquets arranged in certain ways that you were actually conveying a full sentiment. It had its own language. It was its own way of conveying thoughts and feelings and ideas. So whenever we're talking about certain flowers, there can also not just be the conventional metaphysical use for using in spell work or for teas and such like, but also you can look into the language of those certain flowers and how you can use them to convey certain attributes, ideas, components for just use in spell work in general.
And then the last color, and like I said, there's a lot more colors just because I've seen those roses, but I didn't want to list every single rose color, was orange, because I thought that was kind of a more unique rose color. It's not a color a lot of people think of when they think of roses. A lot of people are going to name red, white, yellow, maybe pink. Like, those four colors are probably your most populars.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Orange, you had an orange flower, but yeah, we tried doing roses, and they've all pretty much bit the dust. I have one rose bush left, and it grew out of sheer will because no one was watching it while I was gone for a year and a half. It just grew on its own, that poor thing, and it's just scraggly looking, but it's alive! It's alive. And orange roses, ironically enough, are for desire.
Huh.
I was like, I guess because it's like a fiery color, maybe? Like a fire color?
That.
And I'm just like, I guess? I don't know, I would think like red roses and being like, I'm passionate, you know?
Well, orange for me is also all about like creativity. So it's not just passionate in that desire or lust for someone, but passionate in that wanting of things for yourself, or, you know, that similar energy of like the creative passion, or going after something that you're passionate about, not just someone.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the other thing when she was talking about bouquets and we were talking about like flower arrangement, the language of flowers and all that stuff, you can have a bouquet in your space for you, basically. A lot of people think, oh, someone gives me flowers. You can give yourself flowers.
Oh, yeah.
So, which a lot of people don't really think about. They're just like, oh, someone needs to give me these because romance or notions or whatever.
In the words of the popular meme, treat yourself.
Mm-hmm. Nobody need nobody else.
There you go.
So, like she was just mentioning, you know, if orange for you is like a really energy boosting, kind of creativity boosting one, have a bunch of orange roses in your workspace, you know.
Orange is quickly becoming a power color for me, just because it's something so deep about it, but it's also, for me, orange is very magical. It's very passionate. It has a lot of energy.
And you like citruses.
I like citruses. I like solar energy. I don't know. There's just something that, and I also equate orange with being not just stubborn and hard-headed, but that strive to go after the things that you want in life, or to stick up for yourself and become your own person. There's a lot of individuality that I associate with the color of orange.
Yeah, I can see that. Alright, anything else we want to talk about on rose?
Not roses, no.
Okay, moving on to hibiscus.
Hibiscus.
Yeah, we've got a big old bag here. Probably one of the...
Oh, Lord.
I got you.
Okay, thank you.
So, here's the back side of it. So, it looks kind of like rose petals if you really look at it from a distance, because it's just, you know, flower petals basically crushed up. I think it's called hibiscus in Spanish too, like something really close, but we're going to talk about food real quick before we really get into it, because a lot of people know hibiscus as a drink called Jamaica.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like a tea, but not really.
It's more like a fruity...
But it's just hibiscus and sugar, I think.
Really?
So technically it's a cold tea that they just pour on ice. If I really think about it. And then in Mexico it's such a thing that like they have like Kool-Aid hibiscus flavored. Like, if you can't get the real stuff, you got the Kool-Aid version.
There you go.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know, because it's made like a tea, but then they put like a lot of sugar in it, like a Kool-Aid, and then it's on ice, because it's always a cold drink. So, I don't know, but it's really tasty, and I did not like it growing up.
No?
I guess it was really flowery. I think it was more of a tea in my family's home than like in a restaurant, because in a restaurant there's sugar, you know. And then I've had hibiscus lemonades too.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Those are pretty alright, because it's like tea and lemonade put together. But going into what it is, what it stands for is it's another love herb, petal flower. So love, passion. This one specifically also mentioned lust.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are doing work with flowers, set good intentions, because I've read, not about hibiscus, but setting love intentions specifically. If you set it too hot, basically, you're gonna get a passionate night, and that's all she wrote.
It's basically like striking a match. It'll burn, but it's gonna die out really quick.
Mm-hmm. So you want a slow burning candle, not a quick burning match.
Pretty much.
So.
But yeah, I think, isn't hibiscus also considered like an aphrodisiac or something?
Yeah, I think that's where the whole lust thing comes in, because it's like, ooh, baby, here's some flowers for you.
It's kind of a next step up for roses.
Mm-hmm. And then they could probably go together, because
I like putting
that romance.
I like putting rose and hibiscus together. I don't really use it for lust or passion love work. I actually put a tiny little bit of hibiscus in with my rose stuff whenever I'm doing self-love stuff, to give it that little extra just to kind of give it a little extra something to keep it going, to keep it it's so easy when you're doing self-love stuff for you to do really well for a little bit, and then you fall back into old habits, or go back to thinking about yourself in the ways that you used to, which were not good for your self-love. So I use hibiscus to kind of keep it going, to keep things rolling, to keep it building on itself, to add that little extra passion for yourself into it. But you have to be careful. If you use a little too much hibiscus for something like that, you're going to become a little over-involved with yourself.
Yeah, probably like Gaston-esque.
Yeah. So be...
a little too much self-loving.
be very, very
light-handed
with adding hibiscus, specifically to things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Little goes a long way.
And then this one has a similarity with the next couple flowers, where it enhances psychic abilities.
Yes.
Which I thought that was kind of funny, that love and psychicness, like, I didn't really feel like those would be simpaticos. But, so you can go either way with it. And then they suggested, in your bath water, again, if it's edible or topical. And most hibiscus, like, that tends to be for edible purposes.
Yeah, this is specifically culinary grade hibiscus. It's meant to make tea and stuff out of. So it is safe for skin. It is safe for consumption.
Mm-hmm. And if I can find a picture of it, I'm pretty sure they have jellied hibiscus, basically, where they take the whole flower, and it's basically like a dry fruit, but the way they dry it, it's kind of still moist.
Oh, okay.
So it's, like dry fruit, like an apricot or something, where it's still kind of gooey in the middle almost.
But it's just dehydrated.
Mm-hmm. And it looks kind of like dead spiders or something, because it's very spindly on the top. So it looks really interesting when you're eating it, and someone's like, "The heck is that?" So if I can find a picture, it'll go somewhere where there's space. But yeah, they look pretty wild. First time I saw it, I was like, because you can eat certain spiders. So I thought my friend was eating a spider that day, and I was like,
hibiscus is also really great specifically for dream work. Not just psychic stuff, but also recalling or recollection of dreams that you've had, or doing specifically with dream work. I've seen people put it in with other stuff to help control dreams, make them much more to where you are actively working within a dream, to where you can kind of change it. What do you call that? It's not necessarily where you're awake and dreaming, but it's more like you are really dreaming, but you have control over it, and you can kind of move around and do stuff and make your own choices, instead of you being like a person in the passenger seat. Mm-hmm. But I think y'all know what I mean. It's basically
active dreaming. I know there's probably a better term for it, but...
It's not the same as lucid dreaming, but I think lucid dreaming I associate more with there's still a part of your brain that is awake, that is conscious of the fact that you are dreaming, whereas this, I consider it more, you're fully asleep, you're not necessarily aware that part of you is still awake. You're completely asleep, but you just have control over things.
Okay.
So I think there's like a little bit of distinction.
Okay.
But
because I thought what you were talking about there is getting closer to astral projection or astral stuff versus dream stuff.
When I astral travel, I'm not sleeping. I'm completely awake.
Because there's some people that don't realize that they're not sleeping though. Like it feels almost dream state like.
No, I'm always aware that I'm awake.
So,
I don't know.
anything else on that?
No.
I didn't have, like, this is one of the ones where I didn't have a lot of the associations just because no one had sat there and, that I could find. I'm sure someone somewhere wrote about them.
Yeah.
But if it's to do with love and stuff, probably other romance deities.
Yeah. Hibiscus, I feel like, is also more closely associated with sensuality than rose. Things like roses and things like
And
that.
we'll insert a picture of a fresh one. Those are those big old Hawaii blossoms.
Almost kind of what puts in a lei.
I think those are those hibiscus? I thought they were something else. But anyway, it's
not exactly, but
it's
like
the flower that a lot of girls have
in their hair.
In their hair, right here, like the really big ones with the big old stems on them that are just lovely. And then you happen to have one near your house.
Yeah, actually, well, not near my house. My mom, she has a backyard, and there's a fence, and right on the edge of the fence, there's a hibiscus tree that the flowers are just spilling over the fence. And when we went over that one time, I was like, Alex, aren't those?
So there you go.
But yeah, so apparently my neighbors have them.
And they are beautiful, but
and
they do
smell so good.
They smell great, but they don't last very long.
No, they don't.
They fall off the tree and they're just gonna whoop and floop.
They wilt and wither very quickly.
They are a lovely flower, though.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is another one that's pretty common, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
So again, these are things that check your pantry, check your garden, check your local herb shop, central market, kind of thing.
I feel like these are pretty easy to grow in just a little backyard garden or in a little window box or something. Or
It's wild. My mom's killed that twice.
Really?
Yeah, she has not been able to get this to grow, and this is lavender. Yeah, because I was really excited because she'd gotten like a big one, like a potted one, and
kill it.
It didn't like it. It was just like, I die. Whee. It made me real sad. I was like, oh, well, that didn't work. But yeah, so lavender, a lot of people wouldn't think this, but lavender is a masculine energy plant.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's associated with the planet Mercury.
Okay.
And the element air because of Mercury, and it's a Virgo. Yay!
Great.
So, there you go.
I really like lavender. It's very relaxing, which I think is what most people use lavender for, is especially with things like aromatherapy or in teas. I've seen lavender paired pretty often with things like chamomile because it's so soothing and relaxing.
Honey.
And honey. Lavender and honey. But I don't know. I feel like there's more to lavender than it just being soothing, because at the same time, I have used it when I have been like doing yoga and stuff like that in the past, because not only does it help you relax, but it also kind of helps you kind of sharpen in the way that you, like, your mind is.
Yeah, because even though it's relaxing, it's almost like a clarity to your mind where you don't have too many chaotic stuff going on.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it's relaxing, because it kind of just starts turning some of that off so you can kind of think more clearly.
And I wonder if that's why lavender is considered to be so uplifting. Not just as a relaxation, but has an uplifting feeling to it. Which is why I think a lot of people use it in, like, the sachets, putting, sprinkling it a little bit of the essential oil or the spray on, like, their pillow before they go to bed at night. Things like that.
Especially because, I hadn't really thought of lavender doing that till researching and all this stuff. But yeah, as a pillow spray, yeah, it's relaxing, but it probably relaxes you because, if you go to bed and you're worried about work, or you have kids, or your spouse, or your friends, or your family, or someone's sick, you're sick, something going on, that could probably just turn off everything just enough for you to sleep well.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's known so well to be a de-stressor. Which, actually, I think that's probably why it's considered to be controlled by Mercury, and therefore the element of air and falling under the sign of Virgo, because all of those involve not just communication, but heavy thinking. Lots and lots of brain power that is specifically like thoughts are going, it's making it into your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's probably why it's so closely associated with Mercury and with the element of air. But lavender is one of those, it's really good as an oil or a tea to specifically put in your bath. It can be very rejuvenating and very relaxing in a bath, in a ritual bath.
Something else, because it does also, like, most of these flowers do have an element of some kind of love to them, which I thought was funny because I didn't know this until I went writing all my little notes here. But it's not like, I feel like roses and hibiscus are more like maybe attracting love, self-love, or romantic love, kind of something. Roses can be for existing love, like if you're going familial or friendship, but I feel like, especially when you're first dating somebody, like I feel like that's when you do a lot of roses, because it's new, it's exciting, you know, it's very, the honeymoon, you know, very like, ooh, it's special, it's new, you know.
I feel like lavender is more long-term, more gentle, more building of things like that.
So yeah, it's for encouraging or strengthening something that's already budding, building, or it's already there. So if you're already dated or you're already like in a long-term committed relationship and you're just kind of past the rose stage almost,
right?
Lavender would be a good thing to have. Maybe sprigs in the bedroom, sprigs in the kitchen. Just have it as an aromatic, and then just for that relaxation kind of purpose. And then as far as how is this edible / you know, it's in the garden, but how do I use it besides, you know, spell work and all this stuff? I have seen lavender cookies. You can have lavender teas. Lavender, I've seen teas that are lavender and then it's lemonade, so it's a lemonade lavender kind of situation. And then I have an herb book that was talking about how to preserve herbs, and one of the ones they used was lavender, and you put it in sugar. Ooh. So you can basically sugar it and then use it then in cookies, or I've seen it placed on cakes. So not super common recipes, because you're not going to sit there eating cookies all day, and you're probably not going to want lavender tea or lemonade all the time. But if it's something you want to incorporate, like, every once in a while, having cookies or a tea is probably a good idea.
Well, and not just for culinary uses. Lavender can be used for other things that are not ingested. Like, lavender is very popular to mix with other scents as part of a fragrance if you're doing an oil or a perfume or something like that. I think it blends very well with other things, and I think it helps to heighten other correspondence that you put in with it.
Yeah, I could see that, because it's kind of like a boost. I see it. Alright. Yes. You have anything else?
I don't think so. I think we can go ahead and move on to the next one.
Next one is cornflower. And I remember I had asked my dad to grow cornflower out in Vegas, and I don't remember why now. But he did, because he can grow anything he wants to in Vegas. I don't know how.
Telling you, any plants that should not be alive in Las Vegas, this man can apparently just...
Yeah,
no problem.
His backyard's wild, though. Like, it is planted in sections and it's planted in a diagram, but by the end of all that, it's just a jungle. Like, you go out there and everything's like up to my hip or higher, and I'm just like, never mind, back in I go. But then the other thing that this reminded me of is I just bought that tea, and it was black tea, and then it has some cornflower in it, so it kind of is. Cornflower is mostly for aesthetic when you're talking about its uses. Because it doesn't have, I was reading that it doesn't have a lot of flavor, but if you happen to get cornflower that has flavor, it's a very subtle kind of sweet or tangy kind of, you know, flavor, but it's not overly powerful. It's not like a rose, it's not like a hibiscus where it's just like, oh, you know, a ton.
And I'll admit, cornflower is not one that I'm very knowledgeable about. This is not something that I have ever really used a lot before of, and so it's not really something I'm going to be able to speak a lot on. This particular flower is going to be more her talking about.
Yeah,
I'm just going to sit here and nod.
This flower, along with all the other flowers, is good for romance. One of the names for it is actually bachelor's button.
Oh!
Because bachelors back in the day would tuck one somewhere on their lapel or in a buttonhole to let the ladies know they were available.
Oh, okay.
Or who knows, maybe there was like a code if you were like a guy that wanted another guy, and there was a code for which side it was on or something, but you had to be sneaky about it back in the day.
All I know is there used to be a code for how ladies would wear their hair, as to if they, And it had to do with like bows and stuff, and like which side
There
it
was
was on.
glove stuff, dude. There was all kinds
Yeah.
of language
But,
about everything.
Like the position of the bow would tell you whether or not she was looking for someone in a relationship or something more serious, and then there was also a position for if she was only interested in the ladies.
Oh.
That I think that one was like back. It was tied back
Oh
here,
my.
down by the neck instead of up here,
Oh, okay.
if I remember correctly.
Okay.
This was a while back
So,
when I read
you know,
about this.
going back to the whole language of flowers thing, you know, there was
Yeah.
a lot of that everywhere. So
Which
that was...
violets back then, violets. A lady giving violets to another lady was a way of.
Oh.
It's like I would like to pursue a relationship with you romantically. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
I feel it. So, love, lust, which I wouldn't have really associated. Cornflowers are a very deep blue flower.
They're very gross.
Yeah, lovely blue. It's probably like, it's like that cornflower blue. Like, it's like a known type of just, not quite indigo, because indigo's a whole different kind of blue. But just a very deep, lovely blue.
I've heard people refer to people as having like cornflower eyes. To refer
Especially
to somebody,
for babies.
Yes, very deep blue eyes. Cornflower blue eyes.
Still sick. I'm sorry. Okay.
Jeez, Alex.
Oh. Okay.
You can do it.
And then it's good for passion, so again, the whole romance thing. And then this one's also good for psychic abilities. So I just thought it was funny that all these are like romantic, and they're also all psychic related, except for the rose at the beginning, and I'm just like, why are they all romantic and all psychic? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
If anybody knows why, chime
right?
in. I would like to know.
What's the deal here? Planets associated with it are Venus and Saturn. I thought that was kind of an interesting mix
Oh.
of planetary alignments.
Is
Venus, I guess, for the romance part, but then I was like, maybe Saturn because of the psychic part, because Saturn's one of those mysterious planets. Kind of like Neptune and Pluto.
isn't Saturn dealing with like order and will and things like that? Like more challenges? I thought that Saturn was associated with challenges, whereas Jupiter was the planet of higher thought and thinking. Saturn was more challenges, overcoming, finding order and chaos, and creating order.
I will take your word for it, because I'm not 100% sure at that part. I
hope
don't
I know
do a lot of
something I don't.
planetary stuff, honestly. I barely know my own planets.
I've slowly been learning more, but I'm still at the very baby stage of learning planets.
This one specifically mentioned that it was really good for third eye chakra, again, probably because of the psychic stuff, because it's higher. And it's a deep blue color. And then the other thing that it was used for a lot and is still used for is ink.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There are recipes for it. Again, I'll try to leave links to where I got all my info down there. And basically you would boil a whole bunch of it and then slowly boil it until a lot of the water evaporated, so you were left with a more pigmented liquid. And
Yeah,
it
you
was a dye.
condense it down.
So if y'all are into making magical inks, making your own inks, that'd be a really good way to do it. And then, yeah. And then as far as what you put it in, teas, some people sprinkle it like on salads, kind of like a garnish.
I've seen it added to incenses
Yeah.
and candles.
Which is weird, because I don't feel like cornflowers will smell very much, because they're very subtle. They're not potpourri, like you're not going to just put a bowl out of cornflowers and have your whole room smelling like flowers. Like, it's not that kind of flower.
But I know of at least one YouTuber that she makes her own products, which are very nice, and she is very fond of blue cornflower petals, and I think that one is Joey Morris. If y'all don't know of her, please go see her. She is absolutely wonderful. I love her. She is a big, if you want to know a lot more about the Morrigan, specifically the Morrigan goddess, she knows her stuff. She is actually a priestess of the Morrigan, so she's a very good source for information if y'all are interested in things like that. Her shop is Starry-Eyed Supply.
Oh, cool. Neat. But yeah, so a lot of this is just going to be very brief stuff, just because it's just kind of like snippets of, are they edible? Do you grow them? Can you find them in a store?
Right.
So,
Which, I don't know, I think, like, cornflower, I don't know if that would be more, would that be a little bit harder to find if you're not growing it yourself?
Yeah, especially because I've only ever seen it in teas, like the tea I have, and it's very much black tea to cornflower. Like, it's just a very light smattering of the cornflower. I've seen it sold in bulk, like online.
Oh, okay.
So if you go herb shopping online for like a lot of your stuff, that's a good place to do it. And I'm sure it depends where it grows too. Like if you're somewhere where a cornflower can grow because of weather and stuff. I feel like they grow in a lot of places because they grow by corn, and where a lot of corn grows is the Midwest, and the Midwest has crazy weather. Like they get snow, they get flooding, they get tornadoes, and I'm like, if you can grow there, why can't you grow anywhere else? You know. But yeah, so I feel like it's not something too hard to grow, but again, be careful with pesticides and all that jazz.
I think some of that has to do with the quality of the earth and things like that.
Probably.
All right, onward.
Next one is pansies. Pansies are they're cute, and they survive the winters. They're hardy plants. They don't look at them.
Which I find really funny because, like, one of the worst things like people used to call each other, "You're such a pansy." I was like, but pansies are really hardy.
Right? It's like when people call you a chicken. Those things are old school dinosaurs, people.
And they're terrifying.
Yeah, chickens are wild. Like, they will peck you to death. Like,
don't get me wrong. They can be weirdly adorable, but they're also quite terrifying, and roosters are incredibly territorial.
Ooh. Especially the big ones that can jump high. My uncle had one of those in Mexico. It was like this big.
Anyway, tangent.
Tangent for sure. So I didn't really know a lot about pansies, and I found like the cutest stories behind them doing this research. I was just like, that's adorable, and I was just like, that's adorable. So like, we're gonna insert pictures, obviously.
Like, share with class.
But pansies have the little petals, and it looks kind of like they have a little face on them. And the story as to why they have the little face is because apparently Eros accidentally shot one in the face, and the arrow impacting it left it smiling. Because it was a love arrow.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
And I was like, oh, that's adorable. Like, so I was just reading all this stuff, and I'm like, that's adorable. And then...
See, I just think of Alice in Wonderland and the talking pansies.
Yeah, you know, I had debated about putting Golden Afternoon somewhere in this video, like a little clip of all the flowers doing this, because we might still do that. Because it would make sense, because we're talking about flowers. And the main one's a rose. But yeah, anyway, I like Alice in Wonderland. Two other bits of kind of folklore, and I think they were British specifically, actually. One was if you picked a pansy on a sunny day, you were gonna have a storm the next day.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just, you were gonna call down a storm for some reason, and I was just like, wow, dang, okay. And the other one was something a little darker. Did I even write about it? Because it was just... You know, I don't even think I wrote about it, but it was like if you picked one, I don't know if on a cloudy day or like on a cold day or something, someone you knew was gonna die. Like, it was just like strong heebie-jeebie stuff. And I think that's why I didn't write it down, because I was like, I don't want to put that in someone's head. Because I'm like, little kids pick pansies all the time. Like, you know, like, I'm like... But,
I like want to step on a crack.
Yeah, it's one of those. And then the third one I thought was cute, and this is good for anybody that does their own growing. They have the space for it, and it doesn't have to be big. But if you plant pansies in a heart shape, and they prosper, it's supposed to be really good luck for your love life.
Oh, that's adorable.
Because they're another love flower. But yeah, if you can grow them, and you can grow them in a heart shape, and they do well, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and pansies, I feel like, are a lot easier to find in seed form in a lot of grocery stores. Like places like Walmart, they do, like, when it comes planting time, they have the big little tower of all, like 30 seeds per side, and it's just like the turning thing. Like, I always see pansies there. And then you can find them at most
like Home Depots, Lowe's. I've even seen some seeds at dollar stores.
Yeah. And some craft stores are getting in more and more into it, where they are selling.
I saw them the other day.
Where they're selling seeds at that particular time, right before planting.
So yeah, so that's kind of as far as what I had on that part. It was good. Oh, what it's for besides folklore stuff, it is good for romance. So we kind of touched on that, but it's good for healing broken hearts. So if you've gone through something recently, you know, a breakup or divorce or something, you know, they're good to have around, just because I guess their little smiling faces are uplifting.
Which, in that same strain, I suppose they would be really good for, like, spreading happiness. amongst people, like giving pansies as a gift or something.
Yep, they spread and cheer.
Oh.
And then, yep, that's one of the things they do. And they are good for reflecting on your thoughts, but in a calm way. So kind of like lavender, where it's kind of soothing to do it, and it's not like a hectic kind of flower. It's not too overly energetic. It's like a very calm energy. So, my mom always has pansies because we're in Texas, and it's one of the things that lives through the maybe we'll get it snow of the year. The heat immediately kills them.
Yeah,
but sadly.
things.
But they plant them before the frost, and they stick through the frost, and then they're there in the spring. It's pretty great. So they're pretty hardy. Again, that's why it's a good symbol for the love, because it's a hardy plant. Anything else you want to add before I talk about their food uses?
No, go ahead.
Food uses, I have seen them in salads. Pansies are something that do have a taste. Like, you can definitely be like, I can taste what I'm eating,
I've never eaten a pansy.
I don't know if I have, but I have seen them. I've seen them in fancy salads.
Oh.
I'm sure they have them in non-fancy salads, but I'm for sure seen them in fancy salads. I've seen them candied on really elegant, like, cupcakes or wedding cakes. Where they're basically kind of like the lavender. It looks almost like they got frosted in sugar.
I've seen them decorated on a wedding cake before.
So this is a really good idea if y'all are into either magic on purpose or magic on the sly, stuff like that. If you are getting married or you just want like a cupcake or something kind of, if you're into baking, stuff like that, and you're doing something romantic for a partner, definitely throw some sugared pansies on there because it's good for romance, it's good for the loving and the happiness and the joy, and then they look cute. I'm gonna insert some pictures of what a candied pansy looks like, but I'm just like, that's so cute. So, yeah, I like pansies. I like pansies a lot more than I used to, that's for sure. Next flower is something I've heard a lot about in soap making and in oils and in other perfumery kind of stuff, is calendula.
Oh.
It's a type of marigold. It's not the marigold that looks really foofy, and if you've seen Alice in Wonderland, they have one that looks kind of like a cat, but it's really bushy. This marigold almost looks kind of like a daisy. It has a very straight petals, and they come in like orange. They come in the same colors as marigold because they are a sunflower, so good for Leos, Aries, Sagittarius?
Yes.
Sagittarius. I always forget what the third one is. Sorry. So, again, anything good with sun energy, so positivity, repelling negativity. I was reading that people would make wreaths out of them and hang them in places where you needed more happy energy, basically.
I think this is one that I've seen.
So this one's something good.
This is one that I think I've seen been put in mixes for teas, like mixed with other things for teas. But I don't know. You know me, and I've already mentioned this so many times. I love sun energy things. I love citrus and solar, and just anything. I don't know. I'm very tied to fire, the fire element in general. I feel like.
I can see that. So, and again, this is not. It didn't say psychic stuff necessarily, but it did say prophecy.
Oh.
And this is another
cool.
one good for love, and funny enough, it is where we get the. He loves me, he loves me not.
Really?
That is apparently the original flower you were supposed to do that on. So, if anyone's ever done that, that's where that comes from. Because I guess, again, how they are set up, it's like a daisy where it's just a perfect kind of plucking almost of a
Isn't
petal.
this also a flower that's used for dyeing? Like dyeing things certain colors or...
Yellow.
Okay.
Typically. Yeah, I've seen it used in foods to dye, and I was going to ask you, they probably do it for certain fabrics, I'm guessing, if you get enough of it.
Well, I'm a knitter and a spinner. I have a lot of varying interests in dyeings of wools and other natural fibers. I can't talk. But, yeah, one of the ones that's talked about before has been calendula specifically for dyeing, along with a bunch of other things, but we'll talk about that probably later.
Some other stuff. So as far as and then it's good for legal matters. So if you need any boosts in like the courthouse or in a legal situation, it's good to carry something in your pocket apparently, to give you an extra little hoo-ha boost, I guess.
I didn't know that.
Good for dyeing, and then the other thing for eating wise, salads, cakes. I've seen it used basically as a dyeing agent for certain foods to make them more yellow.
Oh, okay.
I forget what they're used for, but I've seen, like, sometimes it might even be listed as calendula dye because it kind of just boosts, like, yellow stuff. I think people have used it instead of saffron, basically, to boost what saffron should do color-wise to a dish, like with rice or something.
Oh,
it would
okay.
probably boost the yellow of rice with.
They could probably just do that with some turmeric.
Yeah, right. But you wouldn't if you don't want that spice though. You
Fair
want to be
enough.
more subtle. And they do have a taste as well. They are a spicy, tangy kind of peppery, not sweet. So it's a totally different palate-wise situational. And the last plant for this evening is dandelions. Now a lot of people are like, those are weeds. Those are actually not weeds. They're not considered weeds, not even by the government. They are actually an herb. And they are actually not even considered an invasive species.
Like, I know dandelion leaves and dandelion roots are, like, edible and have been incorporated into salads.
So are the flowers. The whole thing, top to bottom, is edible.
There you go.
One of the rare plants that does that, because a lot of things that you eat the flower of, you don't eat the rest of.
Mm-hmm.
And then other things you can eat the flower, you can eat, like, the leaf, but not the flower. Or the berry, but nothing else.
Right.
Or, so this is one of the rare plants you can eat the whole shebang, top to bottom. And their roots go deep. That's why everyone's like, get out of my yard! I don't remember where this came from, and I wish I could find the website. I'll see if I can't. If I find it, I'll link it down. But basically, we don't like dandelions anymore because at some point, somebody said, grass lawns are more aesthetically pleasing. Get rid of your dandelions. That was literally all that happened. Someone was like, I don't like those. Boom. They were, like, targeted. That's the only reason we don't grow dandelions anymore. Because from what I was reading, they actually brought them over from Europe specifically to grow here for medicinal and edible reasons. So it's not like, oh, they accidentally came with the pilgrims. Like, no, they brought them over on purpose. They are here for a reason.
And
they're not here to bother you.
That they're such a scourge.
Yeah, and I'm just like, poor dandelions. They didn't do nothing to you.
Which actually, dandelions are really incredibly useful. In specific, they are good for psychic things. Specifically, I want to say for dream recall is what I've used them for. But I think they have a whole bunch of other uses as well.
Mm-hmm. So dandelions, like the lavender, are actually masculine. I guess because of the sun element as well. They are associated with Jupiter. They're the deities I found I thought were kind of interesting considering it's a sun element. I got Bridget, which I could see because she's a very springy kind of lady. I also got Hecate though.
Really?
And I haven't figured out why because no one left any kind of information, and I was like, sun and masculine energy, okay. So that's a little more research on my end, obviously, but I was just like, I would have never put the two and two together, honestly. One of the biggest pieces of magic to do with a dandelion is picking one and blowing the seeds. Who hasn't done that ever, like...
Yeah, make a wish.
And that's huge magic right there, so just take it more seriously, I guess. Don't just go... Put some intent behind the blow.
Well, it's also the fact that I like using dandelions not only because they're solar energy, but because they are they're a plant that comes back and back and back over and over and over. You can't kill it. It has so much, not longevity, but,
persistence.
Yeah, but I don't know. I really like...
Perseverance, that's a good word.
Perseverance, there we go.
There we go.
And that's what I really like using dandelions for. If I need something that I don't want it to die out, I want it to continue in my spell work, I want it to kind of have a tenacity to how it's working or how I want it to work, I can sometimes use dandelion because that's what I strongly associate dandelions with, is the fact that they are so tenacious in their perseverance.
Mm-hmm. I can see it. A real important note on this one, we already talked about pesticides and all that earlier, but since most people do think dandelions are weeds, be extra careful Do not pick any wild ones to eat because you don't know where it's been. Never pick anything close to roadways, period, because they are covered in oils and other
Smog.
toxicities,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But they're helping clean your air, so be grateful. But yeah, dandelions are probably one of the most edible plants. It's really hard to find an edible version of because you're not going to go to the supermarket looking for dandelion stuff. I mean, some do, and you can get dandelion stuff in vitamins, actually, like in medicinal usages, but not. I have never seen like bag of dandelion roots. Here you go.
People are just so gung ho about eradicating them because they're considered, bad for your yard or just terrible,
Unsightly, basically.
Unsightly, yeah. That it is harder to find dandelions in the wild that have not been treated with some kind of pesticide, weed killer, things like that. So really, you almost have to buy them from another party, like an organic or a culinary grown provider.
I think Wanderlust, or one of my other channels that I watch, she actually bought dandelion seeds because she wants to grow some for edible reasons, and she goes, but she said she bought like 500 or 1,000 seeds. She just bought like this huge amount, and her mom was like, why? Because she bought them off Amazon or something, so her mom just saw the order. And I was like, maybe don't buy so many, because I'm sure once you plant them, it'll go. If you do eat dandelions, though, they were saying to pick all your parts that you're gonna eat while they're young, because if you wait too long, they get real bitter and kind of gross tasting.
Mm-hmm.
So you want them fresh and picked quick, kind of like when you're picking lettuce and some other herbal kind of stuff. You want like the baby parts, and then you can't keep them very long because again they'll go bitter, they'll go tough.
Right.
They're not really good anymore. And again, as far as how to eat them, salads. You can eat the flowers, you can eat the leaves. You need the roots. It's all edible. So if you can get a hold of something like that, it's good for you, good for magic. Good.
Yeah. I've seen the flowers specifically used for teas. I've seen the leaves used in salads. Honestly, if you can find them in a version that has not been treated with any kind of pesticides, heck, I would put them in my bath water.
Yeah. Especially if you're looking for some sun stuff, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Or you need to do some perseverance work. If you know something really challenging is about to come up. What planet did you say?
I thought I did when I was saying it earlier, but Jupiter.
Okay.
And it's an element of air again, which I was like, I suppose.
Which is interesting considering it's such a, sun energy. I always associate sun energy with fire.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than air.
I can maybe see the air because of the whole seed thing blowing on the wind.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, no, they're just really good plants. So if you see them, spread the seeds. Spread the love. But yeah, no, this is part 1. We're definitely doing a couple of these edible flower videos just because I didn't realize how many there were until I started putting down the list of edibles, and I was like, oh, this is a lot for one video. So we're going to have a part 2 whenever we get to doing that. And then if we need a part 3, we'll have a part 3. If not, we'll probably go back to doing herbs after the flower videos, just because the pantry stuff seems to be rather popular. It seems to be one of everybody's more favorite videos that we've done. So just stuff around the house, stuff that's easier to do than other types of, magics, I guess.
But yeah, if there are other things that you would like us to talk about or things that you're interested in, please let us know. We would love some feedback. We would love to know what you would like to learn about and what we might be able to cover in the future.
For sure. But yeah. All right. See y'all next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.